They're coming to get you, Barbara. They're coming for you, Barbara.
Come on! Welcome to another fabulous episode of Schreck Talk. I am Schreck, and with me as always is Mr. Joshua.
Howdy.
We also have a special guest with us tonight. It'll be most likely probably the last time he'll be here. Johnny Rico. He's been on our show a few times.
He doesn't love us anymore.
He's moving. Him and Kitty are going to join the Blue Man Group. So they're going to be gone, and we probably won't see them again. Any last words before we start this discussion?
First words,
Rico?
last words.
Hi and bye.
Alrighty, so
All right. I'm trying to remember the movie that reminded me of a movie. It's like, you have anything you want to say? Hi. Oh, it's in Fifth Element.
Fifth Element.
Yeah, he's like,
Corbin
great.
Dallas. Yeah. All right, so this week we're going to be talking about Arrested Development. This is something, the TV show, not the band. They're terrible. But something that we've all been fans of for years.
Well, and let's bring it back to the originator, if we want to get into it, who spread the gospel among us. He was the first person. He introduced Kyle to it, who introduced me to it. So we can really all thank him for this. So it's actually kind of fitting that he's on this with us. Wouldn't you? What do you have to say about that, John? How do you feel about all that you've spawned?
I don't take any pride in it. I read a Entertainment Weekly article that said the title of the article was "The Greatest Show You're Not Watching," which obviously piqued my curiosity and read it, and followed by buying the first season blind buy at Best Buy, and the rest is history.
Yeah, and that's the great thing is sharing with it's nice when you can have something you love and you share it with other people and they get to fall in love with it. It sounds weird, but you should feel some kind of sense of like, hey, it's great that we all have had the joy of having this in our lives, and we can all thank you for that, John. I don't care which you can thank Entertainment Weekly, but I can thank you.
So, well, since he started with that, and how did he discover the show? How did you discover the show? Did he tell you about it? And then
no, I was visiting my friend Kyle.
Checked it out. Did you check it out?
In Tucson, where John was living actually at the time. And I was staying with him, and he's like, "You got to see this. You got to watch this." It's another thing, that he just he kind of pushed on me. That's the kind of people we were. We always like to share what we love with each other, and we started watching it. And I watched 4 episodes of the first season or something like that while I was in Tucson. Came back, bought the second season, and binge watched it in pretty much a night. Watched almost the entirety of the whole second season after just watching the first 4 or 5 episodes of the first season, and been hooked.
Yeah, and how I discovered it was actually through you. I remember I came down for Christmas one year. I was sitting there, and I was you'd been watching it for a few hours. It was the second season, and you'd been watching it for a while. And I was all tired, and I wanted to go to bed, and I laid down in the living room where you were watching it on the fold-out couch. And I was laying there trying to fall asleep, and I remember the episode was Afternoon Delight. And the one scene where Job was like, and I was trying to sleep, and I just started laughing. I laughed my butt off, and after that, I was like, all right, I got up, I sat up, and I just started watching the episodes.
You referencing the episode, I can think of the scene and just laugh. That's how good that scene is. That's how good that episode is.
Well, that's to this day, my favorite episode of the show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. John, well, since we're getting that out of the way so early, you got a favorite episode since we kind of burned that one all the way. Afternoon Delight would definitely be mine. Obviously his. There's so many great ones, from Mr. F, to is anyone that you don't even have to know the name of the episode, just like where the plot draws your attention in,
Well, Job is one of my favorite characters, and what comes to mind is the episode Good Grief, where they pretend to bury the dad.
Where he's doing
the magic trick, the spin the coffin around, and
to fall out. Yeah.
I don't know, for some reason when it collapses into the hole. And
that's the one I was thinking. That's the glisten.
For some reason that part just.
That's where isn't that the one where George Michael finds the glisten and figures out that Pop is hiding in the house?
I think so.
Yeah, it's the Peanuts episode. Yeah, where all the scenes have the Peanuts reference on it. I thought that might
and
be
our
us.
other contributor that's been on here a few times, Chorizo, she still quotes that all the time. Do do do, and she like puts her head down and walks away and stuff like that.
The Peanut scene, yeah.
There's so many memorable scenes from the show, and if you watch it, it's one of the best written shows I've ever seen. Hands down. I mean, and
well, let's get this out of the way first. We're for the most part talking about the first 3 seasons. The original run,
we'll get to the 4th season.
The
in
Fox
a little bit.
run of the show is what we're mainly discussing. That's where our obsession spawned from, and we kind of consider the 4th season a separate entity.
Yeah, they should have just left well enough alone.
I don't know if I would necessarily that. I mean, they've already announced the 5th season, and I don't know if I would necessarily say that, but it's different. You can't look at them as the same show. They're not. I mean, made years apart. It's
they
not
tried
the same.
they tried to recapture the magic, and it just wasn't there. Hopefully, the 5th season improves upon that. They know the mistakes they made in the 4th season, but anyway, the first 3 seasons. First season was really good. Second season was freaking amazing. Best season of the show by far. Third season was great, better than the first season.
It took a little getting used to because of how kooky it was.
Yeah, they just decided that we're just going to go for it. We're going to go right off the edge here. We don't even care. We're just going to jump off the building and do whatever the heck we want.
And I think only if you watch the first episode, it feels like a second season episode, and then everything after that is completely it's different. Once he gets on house arrest, once George Sr. ends up on house arrest, it completely changes it.
Yeah. What Johnny Rico, what are your thoughts on the seasons and the show as overall as it was written and everything like that? How do you think it fares? I mean, I know you're a big writing guy. You're into all that, great writing stuff. We were just discussing Cameron Crowe a while ago and how great of a writer he was. What do you think about the writing as far as Arrested Development goes?
Cameron Crowe sucks, by the way.
It's probably I don't even know how they put some of those jokes together that start in one episode and end episodes later. Like
Seasons later,
like they allude to things. I mean, unless they just had like a giant blueprint of how the entire series was going to go.
Well, I don't think they could have had a bigger blueprint of it because some of those, the way the show changes and stuff, like especially in the 3rd season when they're making references to the cancellation of the show and things like that. I don't think they may have had some idea of what they want to do, but I mean when they're doing Ong Yang jokes in the 3rd season and references to no touching and things that like this, I mean they realized that they could continue these, that the show was watched a lot by people a lot, and that running jokes hold over time. Running jokes are great. People love to see jokes that are in jokes to reference, like, oh, I know what's going on.
And I don't mind that the 3rd season got a little weird. It reminded me a lot of the last couple seasons of Seinfeld, actually, to talk about a show that we've talked about before. They basically just, like, they didn't care anymore. They decided to do whatever they wanted, and it still worked. It was It had the same charm. It was just a little weirder than it was before.
Yeah, I think the beauty of the 3rd season was they were trying to keep it fresh.
And I was actually Chorizo has just been starting to watch the show again for the 2nd time. And I told her, I was like, when we started this, I was like, it's way better the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th time you go around the show than it is the first time because you start to realize all these jokes.
So many subtle things that you didn't notice.
Yeah. There was the one scene just we watched the other day with Maggie Lizer where he was talking about being a maritime lawyer and stuff like that. And he's, Captain Hook, you're a crook.
You got those backwards.
Oh, well, you're a crook, Captain Hook.
Why
Judge, won't you throw the book? And later on, they reference that scene, and Buster is Captain Hook, and he's got a hook on his hand, and he loses it in the middle of the scene. You don't find out about what that entails until a season later. Like, it's so subtle. They don't make any reference to it at all, but it pops up, and when you watch the show the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th time, you start to realize these kind of things that pop up.
Yeah, and that's what made it so great is that it did have this almost like they were paying attention to everything they had done. They had an idea of what they were doing, and they had paid attention to what they had already done to make what they were doing even better. And it's as we've been discussing over the night. It's amazing how they made these characters so likable. over this course of this time with all these crazy happenings. You never throughout the season there's none of them that you feel you don't like at any point. Even the characters that are bad and stuff, you like them. You
Yeah,
always
even
like them.
I mean, you got your main characters. You've got George. Well, Oscar's not really a main character. George, Job. You got Michael, George, Michael, Lucille. Although Lucille's a little bit harder to love at points, but you do love her still. You got
What are you
Maybe.
talking about? I love her. She's a great mother.
Buster. You got the main family, Lindsay, Tobias. But then even your secondary characters are lovable. Barry Zuckercorn and Bob Blah Blah.
Attorney at law. No
Attorney at
habla
law.
español.
There's Anne. There's so many great characters in there, and they're all lovable in their own ways. At least in the first 3 seasons, they're all lovable. They're a lot of them are selfish. They're stupid. They're all about, they're narcissists. A lot of them are narcissists.
No.
But still, they're lovable characters. And I think that's what makes the show kind of so endearing is not only the jokes that are running through constantly, but that you actually get to laugh with these people constantly because of just the craziness of their lifestyle. And even the serious guy, Michael, he has, his own little running gags and stuff like that still make the show funny.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many things that have come out of that show. From the banana stand to the stair car to so many things that are just memorable that you could point out. I mean, if you had to pick one thing in the show off the top of your head, whether it be a character, whether it be a reference to something like the big yellow joint or something like that, whatever we're talking about here, is there something in the show that stands out more than anything is what you love, whether it be you always leave a note, or something like that. What's the most memorable thing from Arrested Development?
The thing I'd say that I care the most about the show is how many quotes have become staples in our conversations that we've had, and it feels like we're kind of like part of a clique almost, like that we understand each other. Like you it doesn't even have to be anything about the thing, but you just say one thing and exactly.
It's almost like the slang in Clockwork.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Or
yeah,
Schreck.
Yeah, it's like we've developed our own little dialogue when it comes to this. There's so many quotes that are involved in the show, and we constantly bring them up in conversation.
Oh, we could literally make this whole.
We could do a whole half an hour of just making quotes back and forth to each other. 2 times.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of things about that. For me, I love the quotes. That is probably the thing that most stands out from the show. But I love some of the. They're all certain things from the stand to me from the show make me like the banana stand. The banana stand is uniquely Arrested Development. You can reference how there's always money in the banana stand and stuff like that.
He even has a shirt that says that.
Yeah, I just got a shirt for Christmas that says there's always money in the banana stand. I just wore it last week when I thought we were going to be doing this podcast.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't even think it's a very it's one single reference from a single episode, and they literally have a shirt. It's that catchy of a thing that they made a shirt, and it's not even licensed. I don't even think it's an officially licensed shirt.
I don't know if it's not. It's like one of them old timey shirts, but like the picture's kind of faded and stuff like that. But I mean, let's talk a little bit more about what made Arrested Development stand out among the crowd. I mean, would you consider it a sitcom?
Yes, but I don't think it stood out among the crowd. That's part of the problem. I think it was too unique for most people to get. It's one of them shows where it kind of it's a slow build. It has to develop among an audience. It's not something that's going to hit the mass market right off the ground and be really popular. It's something that word of mouth has to kind of kick it up. People like the show. It's because it's unique and it's not normal, and it's not like you're watching Sex and the City where it's something like everybody's all about it. It obviously it got canceled. It was only on for 3 seasons because it was so well received by critics and the people supporting it. Were really when you have people like Ron Howard supporting it, and Brian Grazer helping finance it and things like that. It helps keep it on the air. But I think it's something that it took a while to build in people's love. It's something where the more you watch it, the more you love it.
The thing that I think made it hard for a lot of people to grab hold of it, if you're just flipping through and you turn it on and you're like 4 or 5 episodes into the season, it's your first time watching it, you're probably not going to know what's going on. Yes, it had an episodic story, but the overarching seasonal story was also there, and it was pretty strong. Like, it felt more like a show that you would see on like Showtime or HBO or something like that. And I think that for a lot of people, they just didn't know what to make of it, so they just dismissed it and didn't give it a fair chance. I think one of the reasons that I latched on is because I watched it from the very beginning. I had the discs and I sat down and watched them all. If I had just been flipping through, I might not have given it a second chance. I might have been like, that's weird and dumb, and moved on.
Yeah, it's definitely harder to watch it as individual episodes instead of watching it in a row.
Yeah, and like I said about my story about me discovering it, I had watched several episodes before then, but it didn't really do anything for me. And it wasn't until that one episode, that one scene that really made me laugh, that I kind of got into it, and all that stuff started to click, and those jokes started to make sense. You know, it's one of them shows where you have to watch 3 or 4 or 5 episodes in a row, kind of get an idea of what's going on before you fall in love with the show. It's not something where you have to watch an entire season, but I mean, that certainly helps. But watching 4 or 5 episodes in a row, by that time you start to get into the show.
Yeah, you got to stay for the poppins.
Yes. Another quote.
I've been trying to fit a bunch of them in.
And think about what this did for all these people's careers. Jason Bateman was kind of forgotten about. He was a big star in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. He had kind of died off a little bit. This show brought him back. It made the career of Michael Cera.
Who?
Will Arnett made his career.
Oh yeah, definitely made Will Arnett's career. And then you have people like Jeffrey Tambor, who was around before it. He was never really big, and now he just won all kinds of awards for that. What's that show? That transgender show? Trans something. I forgot what it's called. Yeah, I forgot what it is. He's a trans person.
He was actually meant to just be a guest star for a couple episodes, but he liked the writing and like the characters and stuff so much, he asked to be in the show.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of people that and then you have people like that have become like Mae Whitman now. She's done, she had been around as a child actor. She had been in Independence Day, and then now she just headed her own movie as the Duff, the designated ugly fat friend, and playing the a teenager at 25 years old or whatever.
Is that Anne?
Who?
Her?
Yeah, Annabelle.
A May and egg.
Yeah, it's Annabelle. So a lot of people that were even small people, like small characters in it, have gotten it. And the guest cast list, I mean, it's not, you're not looking at Friends guest cast list, but there's some.
Oh, they're way better than Friends. You got the Fonz. Come on.
I don't know if I could
go wrong
Friends
with
has
the
got like
Fonz?
the greatest guest cast list ever, so I don't know if I could argue with that. I don't know.
And we're not bringing up Friends now.
Yeah, we already referenced Seinfeld. I had to reference Friends.
Okay.
Yeah, that wouldn't be right. It's the only one people actually listen to here.
Yeah. But let's talk a little bit now. Let's move on. I said we weren't going to talk about it too much. What made the we weren't going to talk about it earlier, but what made the 4th season so bad compared to those first 3?
Okay, I'm glad you added comparing, because it wasn't that bad. I'll be the voice of the other side here, because I'm the only one who apparently didn't hate it. It just lost. It added a more serious aspect to it. It put it into the real world a little bit more, I would say. And that for me was the main thing that took it out. I didn't mind the way it was set up and the way people had problems with the way that most of the cast wasn't with each other. Yeah, it was disappointing, but I didn't mind it. Like, I liked seeing all the individual stories, but it was hard watching it. I mean, by the end of the run, I think we had like 3 sex offenders or something like that in the show. So it got a lot more serious, was my main issue.
It was serious, and I think that a lot of the charm of the first 3 seasons was them kind of playing off of each other, and because of scheduling or whatever, they weren't able to all film at the same time. They weren't all...
You had one scene that played out over like 7 episodes.
Right, exactly. And like you might have had a couple in the scene, but you never had like all of them in the townhouse or whatever Lucille's place. And I think that was a lot of what made them funny, was their reactions to each other and how they played off of each other. When they're playing off of people, like actors or whatever, that weren't in, or not a main character, or weren't even in the first 3 seasons, I don't know, you kind of started to understand just how sad of people they were.
Yeah, it lost the fun. It became too serious.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of reasons why I don't like the 4th season. First off, John just pointed out the play off of each other. That was essential to the show. And I think it's too much of a good thing. You stick, a George Senior episode 30 minutes long, you get sick of him after a while. I mean, 10 minutes into that episode, you're sick of George Senior. And then you get one of the other problems I had is the weird storylines, like Tobias and that drug addict or whatever actress thing going on. That was it was terribly written. Yeah, it was not very good at all as far as the stories were concerned. And then you got to see just how bad these people really were. Like, I never picked up on that. I mean, I knew they were bad, selfish, narcissistic, that kind of thing in the first 3 seasons, but they were still always lovable characters, even though they were so bad, just like Seinfeld, where they were, these selfish people. But
Wait, Costanza's not a nice guy?
They were still lovable characters. In the 4th season, it didn't seem like that at all. And, I was just thinking, just for one instance, Michael, right? He always screws up, and he's always trying to do the right thing by his son, but he's always doing the wrong thing, but he doesn't really know it. And he always tries to do his best. In the 4th season, he's like a complete jerk.
What I think is funny is I think the 4th season really highlights, if you look back at the first 3 seasons of how Michael acts, he's just as horrible as the rest of the family. He really is. And the 4th season doesn't sugarcoat that at all like they do in the first 3. That's one thing that I actually really liked about the 4th season. It's like, wait a minute, Michael's not this nice guy. Michael has just as many problems and is just as self-centered and is doing horrible things to his kids. The way he pushes what he wants onto his kid in the first 3 seasons, you don't notice it. But until they show it so blatantly in the first
You didn't
episode.
notice it because he was still a lovable character and it was funny. In the 4th season, it wasn't funny, and he wasn't a likable character anymore.
It just made what I liked about the 4th season is it highlighted the character aspect, like who the characters were a lot more. And when you look at the first 3 seasons, it helps you see what you didn't notice when you watched it so many times.
And I know Johnny Rico's his girlfriend, the one that he's running away with to join the Blue Man Group with, she just recently watched the show for the first time, and she said the 4th season she just didn't laugh, like it wasn't funny. That was her main complaint.
Don't nod your head. That's not okay. There was funny moments.
Anything else you've got to say, Johnny Rico, on the 4th season? Anything you liked about the 4th season?
Yeah, I mean, there was good cast. It was great seeing Lucille too and some of the other ones again.
I like that they tried something different. I was bummed that it wasn't funny, but it wasn't ever boring. I mean, I'll give it that. It was still interesting to watch. I wanted to see where they were going with it. It just didn't have the silly, upbeat nature of the first 3 seasons.
Do you remember watching the 3rd season for the first time and how different it felt at first? And you were like, what am I watching? This isn't Arrested Development. It didn't even feel like the same show. Now, I know that's a weird statement because, I mean, the 4th season is a lot different compared. But the important thing to remember is the 3rd season is very much like the first season and the 2nd season are kind of similar to each other. But the 3rd season is nothing like that. And when the show came back, I didn't want them to try and recreate the same show. I wanted them to make a show where I wanted to know where these characters have been over the last few years and see how they've changed and stuff. I didn't want the same thing over again. Now, was I completely satisfied? No. I mean, obviously not. No, I don't think I think most people weren't. But was it still enjoyable to see where they all were again? Yes. Did I wish they had never made the 4th season? No. I was happy to have it again. I was more than happy, even if I wasn't completely satisfied with their journeys. I was more than happy to know where they were because the actors all felt it was right, so they participated. The writers and people involved with it, the original run, all felt this was the natural progression of the show. So I mean, whether we feel it was or not, the people who created it did, and so I think that's one thing that we can't ignore about the 4th season.
Yeah, I agree. 4th season's okay. The 3rd season felt a lot different from the first 2. That's why I was willing to give the 4th one a try, because the second time I watched the 3rd season, I liked it a lot more. I took it for what it was. 4th season, still not funny, but still interesting, still really well written.
It's just not as funny.
Yeah, better written than almost every other show I've seen still, even though it wasn't funny. And I like it enough that I'm definitely going to give the 5th season my full attention, and I'm hoping for the best.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I cannot jump on this bandwagon. I absolutely hate the 4th season. All right. I mean, there was just nothing. I wish. I mean, if you watch the first episode of the first season and the last episode of the third season, everything comes full circle. All right. The third season ends like the show began. Okay. The fourth season is just a disaster. Like, it ends with George Michael punching Michael, his dad, in the face. I mean, it's because he stole his girlfriend. It's terrible. I mean, yeah, I know they were doing something different, and I know it was hard working with their schedules, but I wish they wouldn't have made it. If they weren't going to do it right, then they shouldn't have made it to begin
Then I don't
with.
think they could have made what you wanted.
And they might not have. They might not have never lived up to my expectations.
I think that's something we have to realize. Now, having said that, will you watch the 5th season?
I will watch the 5th season.
So,
because I've already heard that Mitchell Hurwitz or whatever. Yeah, he's talking about reworking. Johnny Rico told me this, that he's talking about re-editing the 4th season so that it's all continuous instead of a Buster episode and a George Senior episode.
I don't think I like the idea.
And make it all like
chronological.
Chronological. There you go.
I don't think I like that.
So I think he realizes what the problems were with the 4th season, and I'm hoping that they can correct them.
Okay. Well, moving on from the 4th season, obviously we're trying to see here if Johnny has anything else to say about the 4th.
I just know that there are plenty of people that like the 4th season, so it's not like the showrunner Mitch Hurwitz, knows that the 4th season is bad. I mean, I've seen polls and stuff, and it seems pretty divided. It's about 50-50, people loving it or hating it. So it wasn't a total disaster. It's just whether you want to accept it or not.
So, all right. Well, let's before we start getting any more specific questions, let's say what was your over the course of the show we had all we're gonna just reference the first 3 seasons since obviously we've just stated our opinion on the 4th. What is your favorite character?
Favorite character, hands down, Tobias. No question about it.
Why
is
Tobias?
He's so dim-witted, but he's still this really likable, goofy guy. I mean, there's the whole running gag through the whole show. Is he gay? Is he not? He's just, I don't know what it is. And maybe it's just because his lines are always the best out of everybody. I don't know, with the whole Blue Man Group storyline and everything like that in the first 3 seasons or second and third.
Blow hard.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I like the actor David Cross, but I think Tobias you can go on YouTube and find just Tobias quotes, just every Tobias line from the show that's just amazing, and I freaking love watching that.
Okay, well, all right, Johnny, what would you say is your favorite character from the show if you had to pick just one? He's struggling, folks.
I like Tobias a lot. I think, Jeffrey Tambor is definitely my favorite actor out of all of them, and I love that character. I think he was limited in what he could do when he was in the attic forever or in prison forever. He couldn't really interact that much with anybody. I wish, I liked the scenes where he was actually out, or where he had the surrogate was amazing. But I think
the cornballer.
I don't know. I wish I could quote the infomercial, but I can't. But I think I'll have to second Tobias. Maybe I'm partial because I'm just such a David Cross fan. I love the heck out of Mr. Show. I love the heck out of his stand-up. He's just great. For pure comedic value. I could do a whole psychological analyzation about different ones and how they're better in different ways or whatever, but just for pure pleasure, for pure just laughs, I'm going to say Tobias.
Interesting. I have to say I'm rather surprised by that. My choice, rather surprising. And it's not, unfortunately, my favorite thing about the show is the duo of George Michael and Maybe. Oddly enough, their interactions with each other and the way they're both kind of awkward and kind of
But they're awkward in different ways.
Yeah, they're very awkward in different ways. But if I have to pick a single character, it's going to have to be Michael. I'm sorry. He is the worst nice guy ever or the nicest worst guy ever. I don't know how to describe him because he is a pretty... Yeah, he's the Pacific Rim of Arrested Development. I think that's a perfect way to say it. He can be anything. In the one episode, he's the straight guy and normal, but he's always got these little things about there where you see how screwed up he is, just like the rest of his family.
And I would have picked you for a Job guy. Your personality is so much like Job, and our audience here, they're nodding their heads in agreement.
Really? Is that what everybody seemed to think I was going to pick? I'm kind of surprised by that. Yeah, I like Job a lot, and Job is really interesting, and Job is very comedic. But here's the thing. Michael's a real person. Michael is funny and serious and normal and weird at the same time. He's so much depth to him as a character, and you can do so, and that's the beauty of him. You can have him be an outlandish character and have some weird roles in an episode, like his stuff with Maggie Lizer and stuff like that, or you can have him be the straight guy who's just trying to keep his family together.
Don't forget about Rita Leeds.
Oh, Rita. She was I'm not even gonna go into that. But yeah, so I mean, Michael for me, the only reason I like him is because I think he's the only real person in the show. Which is what I like about the show is that for the most part, they're not real people, but he's what grounds the show in reality. He's what makes these people believable. He's what makes it seem like this could actually be a real family, is this guy putting up with the really kooky cases who has his own problems. It's what separates it from the show like Shameless, I would say. Where
those people are all terrible.
Yeah, they're all just as terrible.
But they're not funny either.
I don't know. Like, it's just he's what makes the show.
They're like the fourth season,
realistic and believable in its own way, and makes it. I love Michael. There you go. Having said that,
all right. So, what are you most looking forward to in the fifth season? And hoping for? Are you hoping for kind of a return to form of the first three seasons? Are you hoping for the fourth season again? Are you hoping for something completely different?
The same thing I've hoped for forever. George Michael and Maybe to get together.
I just want laughs. I'm gonna be glad if they do something different, do something the same. I don't really care as long as it's something that hits me that's funny. I don't really care. If they can pull off something completely different, they move to Mars and live on a space station, I don't care. Like as long as it's funny.
And you, sir?
And I think that's where I come from too. It's got to be funny. Like I said, I hated the fourth season because it wasn't funny. I think they need to do the show like it was done the first three seasons and bring all the characters, because their best time is when they play off of each other. And if they don't do that again, I'll be pretty disappointed, because I don't think that those characters can stand on their own long enough to keep the laughs coming.
So you've always felt that it's a straight comedy show?
Pretty much, yeah. I think it's a straight comedy show. I mean,
see, yeah. I think of it as like a more comedic sports night, where it's a dramedy, where there is the drama and the ongoing characters. But overall, yes, it is the drama is so ridiculous. It doesn't even make any sense at all. It's a straight comedy show. They might try, like in the fourth season especially, they tried to make it too much drama. And they put a lot of political crap in and stuff like that. A lot of liberal idealism. It was just more blatant than it was in the first.
Yeah,
it was there.
It was still blatant.
It was in the first three.
But it was more serious. And the show is not a dramedy in my mind. It's a comedy. And if they make me laugh in the fifth season, I'll be fine. I think the best way to do that is for them to get the cast together and all focused on the same goal. Instead of, Jeffrey Tambor is going to come make his episode. Nobody else is going to be around. Michael's going to come or Jason Bateman's going to come make his episode.
Well, no matter what we have, we're still going to be dealing with the ramifications of the fourth season. What happened to these characters, where they're at. So, I mean...
But they're good enough writers. You watch the first three seasons, they're good enough writers. They can write themselves out of all that weird
So what you want is the first three seasons again?
No.
I mean, basically, because those are...
I want it to be funny. Like I said, I want it to be funny. Okay? But I think the best way to do that is to put the family together and not have them be separate. You know, they don't see each other for years at a time and stuff like that, like in the 4th season. Put them all together. That's when they're the best, when they play off of each other. Any last thoughts, Mr. Joshua?
It was a great show, possibly one of the greatest shows of all time. I can never not name another show that has a consistency level of that. I mean,
The Wire.
No. I saw the 3rd season. No. But even like, you know, it's like taking seasons 4 through 7 of The Simpsons, you know, and putting them out there. Like, but that's the entire. I mean, and the only reason I would say I'm sad about the 4th season is it because it's not at the same caliber. You can't talk about Arrested Development as if it's one of the greatest shows of all time as much anymore. It's harder because you have to say the first 3 seasons were so amazing. The 4th season was just okay, you know. So I can't. It's like saying how The Simpsons. Oh yeah, The Simpsons. The first 10 seasons were great, and then it's just been okay. You know, you can't. That's one of the problems with the show. And so I think it's sad that its legacy has kind of been tainted, but it's still one of the greatest comedic shows I've ever seen.
Absolutely. You can just take one season, like one season of that compared to any one season of any other show, and it holds up to whatever you want to bring to it. And I think that's the definition of a great show. It doesn't matter if there's some flaws. There's flaws in almost every great show I can think of. So yeah, pick a season. It doesn't matter. It's great.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, go and check it out. Start with season 1. Like we said, watch 4 or 5 episodes at least before you start getting those jokes. And the longer you go with the series, the better it's going to get. You know, I love Arrested Development. I was disappointed with the 4th season, as I've stated ad nauseum here. But it's still a great show. And even if the 4th season is a letdown to me, I still have those first 3 seasons to keep me going. And it's still, those first 3 seasons are some of the best written television I've ever seen.
Okay, so last thing here before we go, let's end on our just a quote. First one comes to mind, your favorite quote from the show. As we pointed out, it's a really quotable show. I'll go ahead and start it off, which if I was going to have to pick one, it would be something along the lines of, the mere fact that you call it that tells me that you're ready.
I just blew myself.
How did I know that's the one you were going to go for? And that's actually was the first thing that popped into my mind. So give me just a second here to think of one. I mean, there's so many. I'm going to say, let me see.
How'd you like it if somebody came after someone stupid in your family?
Could be Buster. Could be Job. But I'm going to go with, I'll know. I know more than you'll never know.
All right. This is Gene Parmesan signing off.
Have a good one, and good luck to Johnny Rico and his girlfriend moving out to Oregon, actually. You know, hopefully they'll be back here sometime and we can get to do this again. But good luck to you guys. Any parting words, Johnny Rico?
Thank you for listening, even though I never do. Turn to audio form. I'll listen.
Okay. Goodbye, folks.
Go away or I shall taunt you a second time.